Welcome to Heat Checks and Hail Marys. This is Mike Kegley. Well, it was a heck of a weekend. I had the privilege to go to the Illinois game, the 100th anniversary of the dedication game. It took place 100 years in one day after Red Grange scored 6 touchdowns against Michigan, that in an undefeated 20-game streak, Michigan had only allowed 20 points. Red Grange put up 36 in one game. Pretty amazing. He led the Illini to a victory over the defending national champions. And the Fighting Illini scored a field goal on their opening drive and used 2 Michigan turnovers to score another 10 points in the second quarter. They opened up a 13-7 halftime lead. The Illini finished the scoring with a touchdown drive with a 2-point conversion. This was keyed by Tanner Arkin's 36-yard gain on a fake punt. The Illini won 21-7, defeating the Wolverines for the first time since 2009. And this was the first time that Michigan has been held under 10 points since a 31-0 shutout loss to Notre Dame in 2014, ending Michigan's streak of scoring at least 10 points or more at 130 games. So let's move on to Hail Mary number 1. Do you believe in Bret Bielema? When Josh Whitman, the Illini athletic director, hired Lovie Smith, I thought that move was a calculated risk that was worth taking. If it panned out, the hire would be looked at as a genius move. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I still think, though, this was a move worth making. When Josh Whitman hired Bret Bielema, to be frank, I didn't like the decision. In my mind, it felt like Bielema came up short at Arkansas and ran an offense that would not offer the Illini a chance for success in today's fast-paced college football era. As a longtime Illini fan and somebody who's old, Bielema's hiring reminded me of hiring Gary Moeller. Of course, Coach Moeller failed at Illinois, and what he tried to do was mimic Michigan's 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense that was powered by massive and highly ranked offensive linemen. What Gary Moeller tried to do was do that without the massive and highly ranked offensive linemen and without talented running backs, and predictably, it failed. When I met Bret Bielema for a one-on-one interview, my opinion of him began to change. The reason? He acted more like a corporate executive in charge of a leadership team that he was going to partner with to radically change the environment for his team at the front lines. The focus on treating players and their families like his family, and the hiring of coaches to maximize the development of players was a game changer for me. All those things are well and good, but on the field is what really counts. And on the field is where Bret Bielema has proven to me that he can take plans and execute them very effectively. That statement is illustrated by the following accomplishments. Illinois is off to a 6-1 start for the second time in Bret Bielema's 4 seasons at Illinois. The first time being 2022, and obviously this year is 2024. The 6-1 start is tied for the best start by an Illinois team since Illinois started 6-0-1 in 1953. Illinois is 6-1 or better for the 4th time since 2000. Happened in 2001 and 2011, and now 2 more times in the 4 years Bret Bielema has been here, versus 2 times in the 21 years before Bret Bielema got there. Illinois is 6-1 with 3 AP Top 25 wins for the first time since 1990, and this is the 5th 6-1 start since 1990, and of course the second one for Bret Bielema. And the Illini won their first ranked versus ranked game at Memorial Stadium since a 10-7 triumph over number 11 Ohio State on October 12th, 1991. So when fans have shown up to watch big games, Illinois hasn't won. That's starting to change. Bret Bielema has effectively raised the floor of the Illini football program. Instead of looking at seasons with 0, 1, 2, or even 3 wins, the Illini under Bret Bielema can count on 5-win seasons or higher. It must be noted that in 2021, the Illini finished 5-7, but they lost 4 of their 7 games by 7 points or less. So the opportunity was there to win more. In 2023, 3 of the 7 Illini losses were by 4 points or less. When you can say that half of the 6-1 starts since 2000 have come under Bret Bielema, and the last time that the Illini were 6-1 with 3 AP top 25 wins was 1990, and the last time they won a ranked versus ranked game at home was 1991. That's pretty impressive, especially considering those events in 1990 and 1991. Those happened when Bret Bielema was in college playing defensive line for Hayden Fry and the Iowa Hawkeyes. The 6 Illini head coaches prior to Bret Bielema were unable to accomplish these feats. Bielema has proven that he has a plan and that he can execute it. Next up is to see if a Bielema-led Illini football team can finish strong in this new and expanded Big Ten Conference. The 6-1 start ensures the Illini will play in a bowl. Now it's up to the team to see how high they can reach. At 10-2, the Illini could contend for a spot in the college football playoff. Let's see how high Bret Bielema and the Illini football team can reach in this 2024 football season. The path is not easy or automatic, but clearly Bielema is the man to lead the Illini football program. For those of you who are still on the fence, I just got to say, you might want to get off it because Bret Bielema has proven his worth. Now let's move on to Hail Mary number 2. It's a good thing the Super League looks dead. We kept hearing of plans to have a Super League. Now, this Super League that I'm talking about has 16 to 24 elite football teams that would decide to break away from the rest of college football. Certainly, there are private equity companies that would love to pull this off. At this moment in time, there are actually fans who believe that their teams should be a part of this league, due in large part to the pride that is born of their team's success over the past decades. But here's the catch. The reality of losing at a higher rate isn't really a palatable alternative for these teams. Well, why do I say that? Right now, in October of 2024, a sizable group of Alabama fans wants to fire Kalen DeBoer. Alabama is sitting at 5-2 this season. Yes, he's not Nick Saban, but who is Nick Saban? He's right now broadcasting and he's not coming back. The fact that the fans are already to bail after a 5-2 start is crazy. But it's not just the Roll Tide fans who feel this strongly. There's a segment of the Go Blue fans of the Michigan Wolverines who have just reached the end of their patience. They haven't won a national championship since January. Now they want Sharon Moore fired. Michigan's 4-3. They had 13 players drafted by the NFL. And all of a sudden, they can't take any more. Can you imagine how such battle-hardened fans would deal with actual losing? In a 24-team league, somebody must lose. What if it's their team? Of course, the fans of all the Blue Bloods would always say it's the other guys who are going to lose, not my team. But this question isn't just for Michigan or Alabama fans. It goes for fans of other Blue Blood football teams, such as Ohio State, Georgia, Oklahoma, USC, or Penn State. How would these fan bases handle losing seasons? Ohio State's had 4 losing seasons that they've had to tough their way through since 1951. Compare that to Indiana. They've only had 14 winning seasons since 1951. How would fans of Ohio State, Alabama, or Georgia handle losing? They've never really had to deal with it before, certainly not to the extent of an Indiana fan. With a league of 24 teams, there aren't any easy games. The Big Two and the Little Eight are no more because every team is a strong team. Think about it. Instead of playing 2 or maybe 3 games in a season where the outcome is in question, these teams would be playing in 10, 11, or even 12 games in a season that they could get beat. Losses would become a reality much more often than these fans have ever had to deal with. Look at Vanderbilt. They've only had 11 winning seasons since 1951. How would blue blood fans deal with this type of futility? Now, of course, in a league of 24 teams, maybe a team or two would be able to elevate their performance and stay there. But how would the teams that fall by the wayside handle this newfound lack of success? It only took Michigan fans a few months to call for Sharon Moore's head. Alabama fans didn't even get to the 8th week of the season to start wanting Kalen DeBoer gone. Fans of the Super League seem to be big business. And think of people like the television networks. Maybe fans of college football teams, especially those who are blue bloods, should learn to appreciate the day that the television money lands in their team's bank account, because there may not be a lot to cheer for on the field compared to what they're doing in the current system. Even the plan that Jim Delaney thought about, which is having 3 to 5 power conferences aligned together, would be a much more palatable option. But here's the clincher. The fans of the Blue Bloods think that, well, that's good for the Indianas, Illinois, Vanderbilts of the world. But it would also be good for the Blue Bloods as well. Unfortunately, I don't think many of the fans of the Blue Blood football schools really understand that having a super league of 24 teams would be much less enjoyable than a 3 to 5 conference alliance that has 70 to 80 teams. The wins would be much more prevalent in that league. And I hope they don't find that out when it's too late. Now let's go to Hail Mary number 3, Big Ten team tiers. And there were some crazy games last week. And this is a tough, tough week to differentiate what's going on. And I've got quite a bit of movement, although I'll be honest with you, as you look at the upcoming weeks and the games that we are seeing, I think these teams could shuffle around quite a bit right now. And that's a good thing. That's why the expanded conferences, in my opinion, are actually a benefit. We're seeing matchups we don't see as often, and we're seeing some teams have an opportunity to go to battle, get the upsets, establish themselves. It's a lot of fun right now. So let's take a look at the tiers as I have them. Of course, the first one, I've left that unchanged. Now, I know a lot of people think Indiana should move up into this, and that argument is not necessarily a bad one. I just happen to disagree with it. I have Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State up at the top. Obviously, Oregon has the lead, and they won a laugher at Purdue. They're number one in the country. Penn State and Ohio State were both idle, but this is a week where 2 of the 3 teams will be tested. Oregon plays number 20, Illinois at home. A reeling Nebraska faces Ohio State. And Penn State faces a red hot Wisconsin team on a 3-game winning streak. And it really looks like Luke Fickell has righted the ship and been able to win his way back into the hearts of the Wisconsin faithful. In tier two, I have Indiana and Illinois. The reason I have Indiana here is not really fair, but with Curtis Rourke out indefinitely with a thumb injury, I'm going to leave them in this tier. Now, they certainly destroyed Nebraska in a manner that I didn't think would happen, and they certainly deserve credit for that. But at the same time, Illinois beat Michigan, who came in favored into their stadium and beat them convincingly. So at this point, I think these teams are still in that, well, let's see what they're doing. Part of that is because of last year. They weren't expected to be that good this year. And we're going to make them face a few more teams, although Illinois does have 3 top 25 wins this season. This week, Indiana hosts Washington, and the Illini have the unenviable task of going to visit Oregon. Now, Indiana is going to have to play without their quarterback. That will certainly tell us an awful lot about this team. And Illinois has to deal with the powerful Oregon machine. So each of these teams we'll learn a little bit about this week. I don't know that either one will fall a tier, but maybe one of them could move up. In tier three, and this is where it gets really hairy, folks, I have Wisconsin, Michigan State, Minnesota, and Iowa, and I'm putting Iowa there and admit that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'll get to it. Wisconsin's won 3 in a row. They have to face Penn State. Penn State's had a bye week, but it is up in Madison. Michigan State visits rival Michigan, and I've got to think that Michigan is the dog that is fighting with its back to the wall, but Michigan State probably sees, instead of a dog, they see a wounded animal that they might be able to put out of its misery. This should be an interesting game. Jonathan Smith has got the Michigan State team playing much better than I would have ever thought possible. This is an exciting game. Meanwhile, Minnesota, they're in a prove it to me stage right now, but I'm leaving them up here because they have started to turn their season around. And here's the part. I'm giving Iowa a little bit of a pass because last week I said they wouldn't lose for the rest of the year. They immediately lost. But they now host Northwestern, and they've got a relatively easy schedule. I'm giving them a little bit of a free pass that has no real logic to it, but I just feel like this team is going to wake up. Now, in tier four, we have Michigan, USC, Maryland, Nebraska, and Washington. Michigan appears to have no quarterbacks. I still don't know how that happened. I don't know if that was messing around with Jim Harbaugh and all the things going on with the NCAA. They didn't feel like spending the money, but Malik Murphy at Duke, if he were to have been recruited by Michigan and they would have landed him, this team wouldn't be having the problems they are right now. The hubris of not recruiting a quarterback or letting your former coach and all the things circling around him ruin the season after a national title seems a little bit unforgivable. USC has underachieved mightily. They lost unexpectedly to Maryland. I am really thinking that they have the opportunity to drop down this week if they lose. Nebraska, they were just absolutely destroyed. And I wonder what they are going to do as they look to go to Ohio State. That's not a very enviable place to go play after you've lost 56-7. We've talked about Washington going to Indiana. They have an opportunity to improve. And Maryland plays against Minnesota. That is a game that may determine where those two teams fall next week. Maryland's a hard one for me to predict. Minnesota has been up and down as well. I tend to put PJ Flex team when they play at home. They're much tougher. So let's see. Tier five, UCLA, Rutgers, and Northwestern. UCLA squeaked by Rutgers last week. By the way, I also predicted that UCLA might not win again this year, that they're a lost cause. They immediately turned around and won. UCLA is on a bye week this week. It gives them an opportunity to catch their breath. Rutgers is a victim of a bad quarterback. You just can't go with a bad quarterback or no quarterback. That is why I dropped them down. Northwestern is going to have a very tough week, getting beat by Wisconsin and now having to visit Iowa. Could be a tough time for them. I have those three teams in tier 5, but there is going to be some shuffling going on. And of course, in tier 6, all by themselves, is Purdue. They're in last place, all alone. They have a week off and then they get to play Northwestern. But for right now, it's lonely at the bottom. The Big Ten has 3 of the top 5 teams in the country. Will any of them get upset? I'm not certain, but I do think Penn State has the biggest challenge going on the road to Madison and taking on the Badgers. Oregon will probably win at home against the Illini, but you never know how Bret Bielema's team is going to do when they go on the road. They have defeated teams such as Penn State, who was ranked in the top 10 when Illinois beat them in 2021 in the historic 9 overtime game. But admittedly, I took some liberties there. I probably gave Iowa the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't have. And I probably didn't give Rutgers the benefit of the doubt at all. But this is going to be the first of quite a few weeks of real shakeups in the Big Ten. And this is why realignment and expanded conferences is a lot of fun, because we just don't know who's going to win. And these games are exciting. And I find myself every weekend watching multiple Big Ten games just to see who's going to step forward and see which team is going to get beaten backwards. Until we see you next week, keep moving forward.